Greetings, fellow Toastmasters and most welcome guests from all over the world. It is absolutely my joy and my delight to welcome all of you to our Masters of Evaluation Toastmasters Club meeting today. I'm Muriel Trabosh, and I serve as Sergeant at Arms for our distinguished Toastmaster Club. Here at Masters of Evaluation, we meet the first and the third Fridays of each month at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Masters of Evaluation's mission statement says that we are here to equip our members to give effective evaluations that enhance the speaker's impact on the world. Our club prides itself not only on being distinguished, we also take very seriously providing a safe and secure meeting for our members and all of our guests. So to that end, we want each one of you to know that a high level of trust, honor, and respect for each one in attendance is not only encouraged, but this is also required. Masters of Evaluation Club members are focused on perfecting speaking, leadership, and evaluation skills, not necessarily in that order, which eliminates any room for personal offenses. As Sergeant at Arms, it is also my role to share a few housekeeping rules that will provide us with a smooth flow of the exciting meeting that we have planned for you today. We ask that each one of you please silence your phones at this time. We ask that each one of you turn on your video, and it looks like everyone has their video on. Fabulous. However, if you are moving about, eating or drinking, please turn your video off so that you will not interfere with this exceptionally smooth flow of this meeting. Just remember to turn your video back on once you have finished your movements. Finally, if you are serving in a speaking or functionary role, which it looks like everybody has already named themselves. Thank you, Jesper. Was that your creation?
Yes.
Fabulous. Wonderful. Thank you. So you don't have to rename yourself because Jasper has done that for us. I believe the recording has started. Yes. So it's now my pleasure to bring to the virtual lectern the man who is not visible to me, our dynamic, our distinct president, Dave Ryan. Where might you be?
I'm here. Here's David Ryan from Ireland.
Okay, you go for it, brother.
I'm a pure substitute, but I step in to represent this esteemed president, who you cannot see, but he comes across with his sympathy through emotions. And I would like to welcome you all as the presiding officer today to our meeting, Friday meetings. What will a Friday be without us, without Masters of Evaluation? And before I welcome our two guests, I would like to welcome Kathy from LA, or Kathy in LA, who I haven't had the pleasure to see in weeks. Are you all right, Kathy?
I'm good.
Are you better because it's Friday and you have a Masters of Evaluation meeting today? Yes.
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 Obviously, that is the spirit. I would like to welcome Joe. Joe, would you introduce yourself, please?
Fellow Toastmasters, I'm a longtime Toastmaster I belong to 5 different clubs, some in Florida, some in California, and some in Thailand. I recently got my DTM. I started Toastmasters back in 1985. I've had off and on periods where I left Toastmasters. It's a joy to be with you all. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Joe. Well, the nice thing about our club is you basically have Florida, California, and Thailand in one bag. I mean, you wouldn't even have to travel. You just come to our club once every 2 weeks, and then you have it all. And Michael, Would you mind introducing yourself?
Yes. Hi. Great to be here. My name is Michael H. Schaefer and a longtime Toastmaster. My original club was Bryant Park Toastmasters in Midtown Manhattan, and got the bug bit. And so I can't stop going. So I've been missing a few meetings at Warner Brothers, and I've got the itch. So I'm here today to scratch it.
Well, we help you scratch. We will have one of our newest members who actually comes from the same neck of the woods as you. I mean, it might be a few miles just down the road or up the road, but I understand, Jack, you live in New York City as well, don't you?
I live in Brooklyn.
Hey.
Yeah. And I'm a brand new member of the Masters of
And
Evaluation.
we are very proud of having you. And I have the privilege later on to evaluate your icebreaker, which is...
Could I give you the money now?
Oh, I give you my account details on the chat. All right. Now, I would like to introduce our Toastmaster of the day, somebody who has started this club, or at least co-started this club. I'm very pleased to introduce to you Victoria Trabosh, an outstanding member, an outstanding organizer, and an extraordinary woman, and I'm proud to be part of her club. Victoria, the stage is yours. If you unmute yourself, it would be better because then we could hear you.
You should be a diplomat, Vincent, honest to God. Thank you all for being here today. And thank you, Vincent, for stepping in and your bang on impression of Dave. Genius. Today, as I open our meeting, I decided on a theme of gratitude. Many of you know I just came through a big surgery in February 6th, and I practiced gratitude through that whole surgery. I even was grateful for every single caregiver that came into my room. I was in the hospital for 9 days, intensive care for 7. And except for my husband, who was the only person allowed to see me, who did actually say to me a week after I was out of the hospital, when I came in after the surgery, you looked awful. Thank you very much. I didn't want to see anyone, but instead I saw about 75 different caregivers that came through my room. And I had decided before I went into the hospital, I was going to make a poster. And I had a tracheostomy and a feeding tube, and I had wires and things coming all over me. But I wanted them to sign the poster, kind of like a star. Well, what came from it was this. Both sides. These are all signatures of doctors, therapists, caregivers, even the cleaning lady. And as each person came into my room, I got a feel for who they were. And we talked. And I realized how grateful I was in the moment for their care, and how grateful I am for all of you. Jesper made these beautiful backgrounds for us. And how grateful are we to have members who step up? So today, as we kick off our meeting, think about gratefulness. I'd like to hear it in the theme, and I'd like to hear it not necessarily used as our word of the day, but in ways that we remember how thankful and grateful we are. And with that, I'd like to begin our meeting. What I'd like to do now is have our functionaries talk to their work. The Zoom master, Muriel, I don't know if you have the agenda, but the agenda states what the role is. Is there anything you'd like to add to your conversation about Zoom Master, which you kicked off so beautifully when we started?
When I looked up Zoom Master, it appears that I'm supposed to help manage the electronic portion of this esteemed meeting, admit people into the room, allow screen sharing if necessary, mute unruly participants. That's about it.
That's a lot.
Did I miss anything?
That's a lot.
Yes, it is. take my pay at the end of this meeting.
And you shall receive it along when Vincent gets paid
Okay.
by Jack. Thank you very much. And now,
Okay.
Sandra, we are the meeting, we evaluate to elevate, as our motto says. And would you like to talk about your role, Sandra?
Thank you. We're going to be looking tonight at our evaluations, and we started off about a month or so ago in looking at specific aspects of the speech and how it's being viewed and how it's being heard, and then giving feedback. And I got some feedback a couple months ago on a presentation, back to what I'll be giving tonight in Bangkok, and it was harsh. I mean, it was what a friend would say to a friend when your skirt is tucked into your underwear. I mean, it was that harsh, but it was what it was needed. I had wished that I had had that type of evaluation 34 years ago when I started with Toastmasters, because I think if I had learned that back then, where would I be now? And so in evaluating each other, I can't even talk today. We're elevating each other by being honest, but also with a sense of gratitude for the work and the effort that goes in and the courage to get up and give a speech. But we want to make sure that when you go outside of this club into your community, your job, your faith-based organization, or other organizations that you're aligned with, that you represent yourself the way you want to be. So we're going to give feedback on that. We're also having a couple people who are going to add some complexities to our role. And then I'm, at the end of the meeting, going to give an evaluation of our evaluators. Evaluators, I want you to do one special extra thing tonight. I want you to look to see how much fat was trimmed from the speech. Was all the time used wisely? Was there extraneous information? Let's look at what is the essence of what the speaker wants to say, their message, and if they get it across. And to help us time our speeches, our timer today is, who's our timer? Oh, I love having these backgrounds. Kathy, do you have the time for everyone's speeches, and can you give us a demonstration? Okay, speakers, if you would send your times to Kathy, so that she could make sure that you have your speeches, but I believe all of our speeches are 5 to 7 minutes long. Then we'll have table topics, and you have 1 to 2 minutes. Let's get as close to 2 minutes as we can on our table topics. And our evaluators, our 2 evaluators tonight, will have 2 to 3 minutes to give feedback on the speeches. Of course, more feedback can be provided to them on a one-to-one meeting or conversation or phone call. Okay, so next I'd like to talk to our counter and grammarian, Mr. John White.
Yes, thank you very much. Based upon Vicky's opening comments, it's an opportunity to exercise brevity, something new to me. So read the description. I will also provide the word of the day. The word of the day, without even consulting with Vicky, is beneficial, favorable, or advantageous, resulting in good. An example, and this is not a political statement, just something that came to mind. They say the Trump tax cut was beneficial, had a beneficial effect on the economy, but try telling that to the lower and middle class. Back to you, General Vaz. No political comment, just a
great way to start a good debate, which would be an interesting project for if anybody is interested in doing that in their Pathways program. And then that is all of the folks that I have. I will introduce our evaluators before they introduce their speakers. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Victoria? Well,
Thank you very much. Well done. Well done. I'd like to introduce our first evaluator for our first speaker, Jack Kaminsky. Vincent, can you speak to the goals and objectives that Jack has for today's speech?
The beauty of icebreakers is that he has just to try to survive a 5-minute speech. as far as I remember, they used to be 4 to 6 minutes, but I'm not quite sure if that applies to you as well. So the timer should take notice of that. It's 4 to 6 minutes. The beauty of this is there are no proper objectives. You can read your notes, you can do all the things you're not supposed to do as an experienced speaker, but you might excel and you might show us that you can do it without notes. And I'm sure you can, Jack. And I'm looking forward to your icebreaker, his first speech in Master of Evaluation. And I'm sure we will all be learning communication skills from Jack. Jack, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Jack, I unfortunately did not receive your introduction. You said you sent it to me by email, but I didn't get it. So I would just like to introduce you by name, much like a contest. Speech title, name. Next, our speaker on Pathways Motivational Strategies, Jack Kaminsky, Growing Up. Growing Up, Jack Kaminsky.
Jack, you're muted.
Okay, can you see my shared screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Growing Up on Becoming an Artist by me. It was very, very beneficial that my parents kept a photo album. And many of the images come from that photo album. Here I am as a baby. Look at the big feet. Look at the big hands, the big ears, and the big tush, and the big head with very alert eyes. This is one of my first drawings. It's on a paper plate. Look at the round circles. Look at the detail in the eyelids. Look at my use of color. Now, my mom took the plate, put it on a string so that I could wear it over my head as a sign of how good I was. Growing up, I watched a lot of television. Winky Dink and You was the first interactive television show. You would send 50 cents away. You would get a screen that you put on your TV and some crayons. Winky Dink would get into a lot of difficult situations. Here, Winky Dink is stuck on the railroad tracks, and you can see my drawing of the crossing gate trying to stop the train. I also watched a show by Sandy Becker. Sandy Becker taught us to do envelope art. You would lick the flap, you would close it, and draw a line on the flap. And here you can see the cars going over the bridge, 2 cent toll way back then, an ocean liner. Look at those circles, very important to me. Here's another example. I was very influenced by Disney's Swiss Family Robinson, where they lived in a treehouse. I always wanted to live in a treehouse, but it never came true. I lived in an apartment building instead. I watched John Nagy learn to draw. John Nagy would use simple shapes to make his images. He would start off with some circles. He would add some lines, put in some shading, add some more lines, fill in the background, the kernels on the corn, and this was his final image. I would sit there watching the show with my pad and pencil, and I would follow him line by line. And at the end, whoops, this was my drawing, an exact replica of what he had done. I knew at the time that I was going to be an artist. How, you ask? Well, I looked exactly like John Nagy. We both had mustaches. We both had beards. We both combed our hair the same way. and we both wore flannel shirts. I played baseball with my dad. I learned photography when I was a Cub Scout. My mom was the den mother, and I was given a camera and film, and I took pictures. I read Junior Scholastic and dreamed of the cars of the future. I want you to know I am still dreaming of those cars. The space race was on. Russia was the enemy, and I would buy stuff from Estes rockets, put them together, and shoot them off. I did chemistry with my sister. I learned a little about astrology and handwriting analysis. In the paper, the newspaper, the New York Post, they would have a grid and you would do the drawings. I was very, very good at that. In high school, I was a punk kid, and then went on to college where I studied abnormal behavior. At the time, the Vietnam War was on. People were being drafted left and right, and I wanted to fit in. So I grew my hair long and became a hippie. I even managed to graduate from Brooklyn College. Went on to do drawings, The Lucky Family, inspired by Saturday Night Live, Mr. Bill. I'm not going to go over it right now, but that's what I did. And I graduated from grad school with a 4.0 index, continued doing drawings. I even developed my sense of color and was able to stay within the lines. I bought myself a very expensive camera. And that's why today I'm able to take pictures that are in focus and well composed. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jack. Madam Timer, may we have 90 seconds for people to give feedback to Jack in the chat, and please do give unconditionally constructive feedback. Also, Madam Timer, if you could pin yourself by raising your hand, you'll be in the upper left-hand corner of our screen. Thank you, Madam Timer. And now I'd like to introduce our second speaker. But before I do, I'd like to introduce her evaluator, who is Judith Ferber. Judith, could you tell us what you're looking for in Shantae's speech?
Thank you. Shantae's is a leadership development of connect with your audience. Is the member completing this project is practicing the skills needed to connect with an unfamiliar audience. To do this, the member presents a topic. This is new or unfamiliar to your club, to our club members, I guess. The title is I See You.
Thank you very much. And let me remind all the viewers of this speech, we know Shantae, but watch it objectively. Watch it like you've never heard her speak to give her the feedback she's seeking. And let me read her introduction. As a leader, Shantae is committed to helping people find their why through strategic planning, mentoring, and training. With a career spanning almost 2 decades in accounting and finance, Shantae shifted focus to human development when she saw the need to help individuals who didn't have a voice. Shantae joined Toastmasters 2 years ago to become a more eloquent speaker, but what she received from the program was more fulfilling. In addition to eloquent speaking, leadership and mentoring became a forefront, prompting Shantae to launch her business consulting firm in 2021. Now Shantae not only helps individuals, but small businesses too. Shantae is certified in advanced leadership, board leadership, and connective leadership. She is president of Ladera Toastmasters, VPE of Meg Talks, and our current District 1 PR manager. She is a woman who truly believes in the importance of listening to your intuition, and a woman who is eager to grow as a renowned public speaker. Please join me in welcoming Shantae Howard to the stage in her speech titled, I See You.
Mm-hmm.
Sandra, I see you. John, I see you. Kathy, I see you. A coworker of mine recently accepted a job opportunity that would change his life. He will now be the first minority man to lead a global organization. When he first told me about the opportunity, I was ecstatic. I knew how hard he had worked, and I knew he deserved every bit of this amazingness that would follow. However, I could not help but to notice the look of fear on his face, which I simply just brushed off as new opportunity jitters. Well, a week later, my friend is giving his acceptance speech, and he mentions how nervous he was about stepping into this new role. That as a young boy from India moving to the States, he was often dismissed and stereotyped. But he stayed true to who he was, and in this moment, he felt seen. This pulled at my heartstrings because in that moment, I understood how he felt. Madam Toastmaster, guests, and friends, how many of you have ever walked into a room and felt invisible? Like everyone in that room could see right through you. Maybe you walked into a room of a new company where you felt underqualified. Or maybe you walked into a room where nobody looked like you. Or maybe you walked into a room and you just knew in that moment, your life would change forever. For me, I first walked into that room when I was a young girl in Boston, Massachusetts. You see, in the early 80s, at the tender age of 7, I lived in a disadvantaged community. My mother wanted to make sure that I had the best opportunities. So she put me in a program to learn with my peers in the suburbs. I was bused an hour and a half from my home each day to go to school. I was the first Black student to integrate a class in an all-white town in Massachusetts. Now, whether or not you are familiar with the Boston race riots, you can probably imagine the pushback I received as one of the first in that town. Well, unbeknownst to my 7-year-old self, I was entering a space where I would soon lose myself and become invisible. The parents of my soon-to-be classmates advised them to ignore me and act like I didn't exist. Hi, I'm Shantae. And they obeyed their parents. So no matter how hard I tried or how big I smiled, no one would speak to me. And I was invisible. From the students to the teachers, I was not wanted there, and they let me know it. Through name calling, through the pushing, even the teachers constantly telling me that I was wrong, even when I was right. I mean, I could have sworn 5 + 5 was 10, but maybe I'm wrong. It created an insecurity in me that would take years to break. But despite the seclusion and occasional violence, I managed to push through, authentically me, but unseen and a little broken. I spent my 20s healing from that experience. And after a few bad relationships, I knew I had to do something to change my trajectory. So I sought therapy, I journaled, and I put time into me. Now, years passed, and the next time I would walk into a room would be the tender age of 36. This room, ladies and gentlemen, was Los Angeles, California. I walked through that room with joy and anticipation. But I would soon start to feel invisible again, lost in a sea of dreamers, and I did not know how to swim. I would find myself once again in rooms full of people who did not look like me and who did not want me there. This time as the first Black woman to integrate an all-white organization as an upper-level manager. So now, instead of childhood pranks, I was met with blatant disregard for my leadership. As I was beginning to feel invisible again, I stopped, refocused, and this time I fought to be seen. But not just for me, but for others like me. When my fellow employees were mistreated, I spoke up. I now had the power to create systems within my organization, and I used it. I was loved by some and despised by others. But I overcame my challenges of being invisible by tackling it head on and helping others along the way. Yes, there was therapy, education, and other tools used in my journey, but my change came when I made the adjustment within me. And I chose to do what was authentic to me. Helping others while staying true to who I am at the core was most beneficial. So now, 8 years later, when I walked through that next door, it was the door of new opportunities, a new tribe, and my own organization. And guess what? I hold the key. And I am seen. Joelle, I see you. Judith, I see you. Tracy, I see you. Masters of Evaluation, I see you. So the next time you walk into a room and feel invisible, take a deep breath and be authentic to who you are, because you are seen. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Shantae. Beautiful job.
Yes.
Madam Timer, may we have 90 seconds to give specific and helpful feedback to Shantae in the chat. Thank you, Kathy. And now, may I have a timer's report for our two speeches, Kathy?
Yes, you may, Madam Toastmaster. For Jack Kaminsky, who presented his icebreaker, he came in at 5 minutes and 47 seconds. And Shantae Howard presenting her speech, really professional, right on the mark, 7 minutes, 29 seconds.
Oh!
I'm sure you were looking at my clock.
Better never than late, I say. Thank you very much. It does say on the agenda we're going to vote for Best Speaker. We're not voting for Best Speaker anymore in this club. And for your information, when we get to you again, Sandra, we're not voting for Best Table Topic Speaker. So I would now like to turn the meeting over. We are 1 minute off. We're doing this well. We're going to have table topics from now from 9:38 through 10:05. And I'd like to turn this over to Jesper. Jesper, you're up.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. So for table topics, to our guests and fellow Toastmasters, as I share our questions today, I would be grateful if everyone could participate, but if for some reason you are unable to, feel free to let me know. So back to table topics. Following today's theme, what I'm going to do is share various ways of expressing gratitude. And I'd like to know a specific way that you've shown that way of gratitude. So for example, our first one way to express gratitude is to write a handwritten letter or a greeting card. And I'll turn this one over to John. John, give us an example of when you've expressed gratitude by writing a handwritten letter or a greeting card.
Yeah, I don't recall the last time that I've done that. I went so far as to buy thank you notes and I appreciate you notes. And I, of course, use them for happy birthday cards and happy Mother's Day when I am running late and haven't found that at the store. So I'm just going to confess that. My gratitude, Jesper, is in how I treat others and in my interaction with others. I do send lots of encouraging emails to Toastmasters and that sort, but I think generally I am a positive, encouraging soul who has fallen out of the habit of writing thank you notes, which I will, of course, work at. Oh my goodness, this is a long time. The other thing is, for a practical reason, other than just I'm perhaps working on becoming a better human, my writing has degenerated to the level of being that of a doctor. So when I do write notes to my kids for their birthdays and something, they love the sentiment. They don't decipher the word. So it gets frustrating. And all of a sudden we're back in the living room and I'm trying to explain math to them. I clearly see the sentiments, or that 5 + 5 is 10, Shantae, but they're in tears because they can't read it. So I will work on my penmanship and my thank you notes, but I think generally my gratitude for those in my life is felt by them. At least that's my hope. Back to you.
Thank you, John. Another way to express gratitude is to do something unexpected for someone. Ray, I'd like to know a moment when you've done something unexpected for someone to express gratitude.
Hi, Jesper. Thank you very much. Yeah, you've put me right on the spot, and now is where I want to express my gratitude to you. Is you've given me the opportunity to answer a table topic. So this evening, I have great gratitude to be able to be table topics evaluator the night before I compete, because we all know how pre-night nerves can grab you. And if I'm not doing press-ups or running around the block or training or keeping myself busy, you start to overthink it and overcook the egg. So the benefit to me really is the gratitude that I have for you calling me out when I wasn't prepared. I had my head down taking notes, and I can look up and instantaneously give you something back on the spot that shows me that I'm going to be ready tomorrow to hit that stage, take that competition, and look for the top spot with all the gratitude in the world. Back to you.
Thank you, Ray. Our next one is for Vincent. Another way to express gratitude is to call someone more often. Tell us about a time when you've called someone more often to share your thankfulness.
Well, I'm against calling people. I'm not really a good communicator. I prefer to meet people every now and again in a bar like I do with Ray every other Saturday. But calling people, that requires to interrupt in their lives. I call somebody and I have no idea what they're doing. They might be cooking, they might be sleeping, they might be having a drink, they might be watching television, and I'm calling and I'm trying to show gratitude, and they will say, well, I don't really want to talk to Vincent. Why should I talk to Vincent? What's in for me? And that's the key question if you want to communicate with anybody. So, no, I don't like to call people. I don't. I prefer the handwritten notes, although I agree with John, even though you get the letter in the mail and you can look at the stamp and the nice stamp often there are, but obviously there are illegitimate. You can't read them because I can't even write my own handwriting. I jot down things for my shopping list. And then I arrive at the supermarket and obviously I have no idea what this all means. I show it to my wife, Karina. She looks at it. Sometimes she is better at actually deciphering my written language than I am. So coming to a conclusion, no. I think calling people is not a sign of gratitude. It's a mean of interrupting their lives. And I don't like to interrupt anybody's lives. Consequently, I send a letter of gratitude, although they're not able to read it. They will be happy to receive it. Just the joy of receiving a letter in your mail today, which is not from your bank, is already something to write home about. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. I'd like to reach out to one of our guests. Michael, are you able to participate?
Happy to, sure.
One of the ways to express gratitude is to buy a thoughtful gift for someone. Tell us about a moment when you've bought a thoughtful gift for someone.
Oh boy, I think I have to buy one. Because just day before yesterday, a friend who's also my marketing accountability buddy on our businesses stopped me in the middle of something that I was responding to that she'd shared and said, can I give you some feedback? I think she didn't even ask me. She just said, got to stop you because I had been listening to her and then I jumped right in with, that reminds me of something that I experienced. And I went on a little run there, a little riff. And it all boiled down to what my girlfriend has so succinctly put, that I was not listening to understand, I was listening to respond. And I think that's a big problem for me lately. I'm a coach, a public speaking coach, because of my love of evaluation that I developed in Toastmasters. And so I come from a family of teachers, so I'm always looking to teach and just throw knowledge at people. And in the recent past, I've had some interactions with people that one of my writing teachers had said, when you are writing, make sure that you don't employ too much of a flood of circumstantiality, like the story of when you burned your hand as a child. You don't need to tell the listener the brand of the stove. So a lot of people with a lot of details. And if you know somebody from Brooklyn, like Jack, you want to cut to the chase. So I wasn't. I was just interrupting. So I owe her a bouquet of flowers or something for giving me some honest feedback. And that's why I love evaluation, just being here and getting a chance to get better. Thank you for that great question.
Thank you, Michael. This next one is for Sandra. Another way to express our gratefulness is to give hope and encouragement to someone in need. Sandra, can you tell us a time when you gave hope and encouragement to someone in need?
Well, being from Minnesota, we're not very expressive to begin with, and it had to move to California for me to understand the difference. And when I did, I realized that something I had left behind back in the great state of Minnesota was my sister. Now, we weren't always the best of friends, and she always gave me really nagging advice, but I missed her. I missed her 2,000 miles away. And it was the loss of that camaraderie of knowing all the secrets on each other and being able to threaten each other with telling those secrets. And it was just that simple, very, very simple friendship that siblings have that I missed. She passed away a couple years ago, and I still miss her to this day. I can remember her and her antics and how she knew every capital of every state in the United States. And that's what I was jealous of her for. She knew the stupidest stuff that I couldn't remember, but she was the brain. I was the bronze. I was out there playing baseball. She was back home fixing my boo-boos. So I miss my sister, and I'm glad that even though we were 2,000 miles apart, we could keep in contact. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. I'd like to turn this next one over to Tracy. Are you able to participate? Tracy, another way to show our gratefulness is to forgive someone. Tell us about a time when you forgave someone.
I am so sorry. I have to say that I'm so sorry to Shantae Howard. Fellow Toastmasters, I have to forgive her because she is incredible. She is one of the best speakers I've ever heard. But I was a little hard on her the other day because she didn't have enough energy for what I wanted her to do to speak. And she wasn't genuinely and beneficially giving her message. And I told her she has to up the ante. And I realized that not everyone is the same type of speaker, Kathy. We all make a choice. And I realized, Madam Savage, that when we're playing baseball out in the field, that we all can't make a catch. And I had to forgive myself for being so just in my own feelings about the way other people speak. It's not a master of illustration or of evaluation. It's an actual thing, Muriel Shabazz. And we have to be careful when we tell people how we think and what we think about their speeches, because you can make them go left or right depending upon your voice and what you say. So Shantae Howard, I'm sitting here right now smelling a sweet apple lemonade candle from Candle Fetish. And I'm sitting here thinking about tonight when she goes up against an opponent to become the club growth director for District 1. And I want her to go in there with her energy, her passion, her talent, her tongue, her voice. And I want her to tell her story the way she wants to tell her story. And when she does, she's going to dazzle and she's going to become the club growth director for District 1. So I want to ask each and every one of you to forgive yourself, not only for having been evaluated, for the evaluations that you're going to give. Because either way it goes, every single one of us on this field today, right now, everyone in my field of view, in my purview, Mr. John White, and everyone else, you have a story to tell. But I want you to tell that story in your own way. So I appreciate evaluations. I appreciate masters of evaluation. But at the same time, I appreciate Shantae Howard more than y'all will ever know. And I promise you that she's going to make District 1 even better. And eventually, as your district director, she's going to make sure that every single one of you is a master of your own destiny. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Tracy. Next one, I'd like to turn it over to Kathy. Are you able to participate? I could keep track of your time. Kathy, another way to express our gratitude is to recognize how good things really are. So tell us about a moment when you just realize how good things really are.
Funny you should give me that question, because I just got back from an amazing trip to South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Botswana. And one of the places that I got to go to in Cape Town was to a township. I've read about townships, I've seen pictures. However, going there and seeing the reality of it was didn't have words for it. When the guide came to me and asked me, "Was this what you expected?" I couldn't even answer him because there was so much emotion that I had packed down within me until I felt like if I opened my mouth, I was going to just burst into tears. What I eventually was able to say to him was, I don't know what I expected, but what I just saw wasn't. What I saw was something that I think that we should all have experienced, we should all see to understand just exactly how much gratitude we should have for where we are and how beneficial it is to be able to travel to other places, see other things, see how other people live. And I don't remember the beginning of the question, so I'm going to turn it back over to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Kathy. The next one, I will turn it over to Vicky. Another way to show our thankfulness is to become someone's greatest fan. Tell us about a moment when you were someone's #1 fan.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. Well, I'm still this person's #1 fan. I will be her #1 fan through eternity. It is my beloved mother, who is dead, also known as Dead Rita. You can buy the book on Amazon, Dead Rita's Wisdom. And this woman was everything to me from the moment I was born until she died in my arms in 1998. I was her biggest fan. I used to stare at her as a little girl. This was in the 60s, late 50s, early 60s. She had perfect bouffant hair, if you know what a bouffant is. And I would stare at her hair and she'd say, "What are you looking at?" And I'd say nothing. People thought she was a hairdresser. Her hair looked so good all the time. She was an accountant. I wanted to be Dead Rita. Small, petite, shy, and demure. And as I like to say, how am I doing? God, I could not be Rita. And I would say to her all the time, I want to be just like you. And she'd say, no, don't be like me. One time in particular, I said something beyond the pale, which I've been known to do. And I came home and I was humiliated. And I said to her, Mother, you're not going to believe what I said. And she goes, what'd you say, Vic? Because she loved it that I was so salty. And I told her, and we started to laugh, and then I started to cry. And I was 40 years old. And she said, Vic, quit trying to be something you're not. You're perfect who you are. I became her biggest fan the moment I was born. And I stay her biggest fan no matter how long she is gone. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Vicki. Our next one, I will turn it over to Joel. Are you able to participate?
Yes, I am.
Joel, another way to express our gratitude is to do something that someone else enjoys. Tell us about a time when you did something for someone else that they enjoyed.
Table Topic Master, fellow members, we have the power to touch someone through words by understanding the inner soul of that person. And that would have to certainly be my late mother. My mother encouraged me to become a public speaker. And that was the best thing that I learned. And I enjoy to give knowledge to people, to share my thoughts, my ideas to someone else. So my mother is someone special to me and has always been in my heart. We lived in two different continents for most of the year. But she would visit me when I was living in Los Angeles County, and we would have a few months together. It was a subtle but enjoy sharing period. My dad didn't like the long trips to travel from Asia to Los Angeles. But the joy and the strength that what the legacy of my mother stays in me, because she was a teacher in a classroom, in a school. But I was a teacher helping adults regain their lost technology skills. Back to you, Table Topic Master.
Thank you, Joel. This next one is for Muriel. Another way to share our gratitude is to tell someone else how they've made a difference in your life. Tell us about a time when you've shared with someone else how they've made a difference in your life.
Wow, just put that as a fabulous question, Mr. Table Topics Master and fellow Toastmasters, and to our most welcome guests. How did someone else make a difference in my life? Is that the question?
When you've told them how they've made a difference in your life.
You know, I just recently told someone how much they have made a difference in my life. I grew up in what you would call the 60s, the militant 70s and 80s and 90s, all of the social justice era times that we see, the legacy that comes from 400 years into this era now. And I had a very myopic, a very narrow way of viewing people. And I think that I favored people that looked more like me than others. Recently, I met someone and I had to begin to realize that he gave me a better and deeper understanding of the power of the human spirit, the power of being here on this planet to serve each and every one of us. And so now I have found that I have shared with this particular person. He has been what I call someone who has allowed me to free my soul, someone who has allowed me to be an explorer of things outside of what I have been used to. I now call him my emancipator. And he knows who he is because I have mentioned this to him several different times. And I'm so grateful because our relationship as friends is so beneficial because it has allowed me to grow beyond a narrow, limited way of seeing the world and seeing people. So I'm grateful that I'm able to text this person, to call this person, to speak to this person, and to share that we have a magical relationship because he's my first in many, many different ways. And I'm grateful and thankful for this beneficial relationship. And I always let him know that he is my emancipator. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Mariel. Everyone is showing great beneficial ways to express gratitude. Toastmaster, how are you doing on time?
We have 5 more minutes. So I think you can get 2 more people in, and then you could call for the timer report and then turn it over to me.
Great. This next one is for Judith. Another way to express gratitude is to celebrate someone else's achievement. Tell us about a time when you've celebrated someone else's achievement.
Thank you, Jasper. This is a perfect question for me because I have been working with a friend on his speech in a contest speech. And I can tell you that it's been absolutely a wonderful time. I couldn't be happier where he is. And gratitude is just really wonderful because he thinks he announced the world now that I am his mentor for some reason. And it's very embarrassing in some ways. But I have been really grateful for this. And I couldn't be happier. And that is one of my achievements in this friendship with Jason that is worked into this two-way appreciation of each other. And I actually get all emotional about this whole thing, but it is really one of those wonderful moments that happened in my life recently. And I am really very grateful for this. And thank you for this perfect question.
Thank you, Judith. And one more, Shantae. Another way to express gratitude is to give back to your community. Tell us a time when you express gratefulness by giving back to your community.
Jasper, I find giving back to my community most beneficial. I have volunteered my time at a lot of soup kitchens, and I have given back through feeding women and domestic violence shelters and also homeless shelters as well. I started a program, actually I started 2 programs back in Boston, which eventually I'm going to bring to LA. One is actually a national organization, but I did a Boston branch of Walk a Mile in My Shoes. And so what that is you get men to walk in heels for 1 mile so that they understand kind of like they can't really understand by just walking a mile in the shoes. But the concept is that they feel like the pressures of being a woman and they give back, and it's a whole thing. We donate money, we raise money. I don't know why I can't speak today, but it's a really great organization. And then other thing that I do is called Purses for Purpose. What I do there is I get women to donate the purses that they don't use, because we all have a closet full of purses that are just sitting there collecting dust. And I get women to donate their purses, and then we fill them up with products for women and then hand them out to homeless women on the streets. So those are kind of some ways that I have given back in the past, which I am definitely going to bring back to the future. But thank you. That was most beneficial to go down memory lane with you, Jasper. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing your beneficial ways of expressing your thankfulness to the world. I will turn it over to our timer for a timer's report.
Thank you so very much. And because our table topics there were quite a few, would you like the full report for everyone, or who qualified, who did not qualify?
Toastmaster, the best way to...
I would say if anyone went outside the boundaries, other than that, say everyone qualified except for Vicky.
Okay, so everyone qualified except for, sorry, Ray and Muriel. Ray, you were at 56 seconds, and Muriel, you came in at 2 minutes and 32 seconds.
Oh, are you sure? I want to recount.
You don't trust me?
Yes, I do. You know I love you.
I didn't ask that part. You don't trust me?
Yes, I do. I trust you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you both. Muriel, if you'd gone 2 minutes less, Ray, you'd gone 2 minutes more. Bam. Okay. With that, I would like to turn our meeting over to our general evaluator, Sandra Savage, who will run through the rest of the meeting. Sandra, you're up.
Thank you very much, Vicki. And the part I like the most is hearing our evaluators give some constructive feedback to our speakers. So I'd like to start with Vincent, who's going to be evaluating Jack's colorful presentation. Vincent?
Thank you very much, General Evaluator. Jack, thank you for enlightening us about your life, because it was very much a whole lifespan of art. Thank you. It was truly beneficial. What was beneficial to me was that it was relatable. We are more or less of the same generation. We've lived through the same. We had long hair and beards while Nixon was in power. We know about the Vietnam War. Although I had no chance of being drafted into it, I was still out there trying to voice my thoughts about the war. I was asked to do some trimming. And where would I cut? Good question. I would think there should be better transitions. I don't really know where the speech was going to lead me. Yes, it was a biography. But somehow, why should I listen to you? What benefit would it give me? Is it beneficial to me as your audience?
All right.
I would have focused on perhaps fewer items, perhaps the art, and say, because I learned this as a young boy, it allows me to now make a living, or I've been able to buy myself a house thanks to my unfocused photography. Obviously, the humor in the speech was magnificent. I like that. I said I like the relatability, the winky dinky, the 2 cent tall, the hippie I mentioned before. I would frame myself slightly different. And although you use PowerPoints and you use it well, still I really want to see you rather than the PowerPoint. So as a public speaker, I would use a few, and also it keeps your right hand busy with changing slides. And somehow this comes across, and I would prefer you to have both hands visible. All in all, I like the language, I like the jokes, I like the relatability, I like the expert replicas and the unfocused photos. I would build a story where I somehow learn perhaps 1 or 2 skills which made your life different from mine. And I want to listen to more of your speeches, because I'm sure some of these 2-cent tolls will pay off to me as well. Thank you so much, Jack.
Thank you very much. And thank you for taking on the challenge of the day in where to trim a speech if there was anything extraneous or anything missing. So with that, let's go to our second evaluation, which is Judith, who will be evaluating Shantae's speech. Take it away, Judith.
Thank you, General Evaluator. And thank you for your speech, Shantae. I think this is an important speech that I hope that you will develop and do a little more with it, because it is important. And I think the whole foundational phrase of this, until we see ourselves, no one sees us. And that is exactly what it is. And so it was, I love the story. I'm not exactly sure what your coworker of the Indian person had to do with this, because your story stood just alone really wonderfully well. And the fact is that you've gone through this whole, your 7-year-old self when you thought you were invisible. You probably weren't, but you thought that nobody sees you, and everybody ignored you, and how this created insecurity in your life. And what I would have liked to do is to have a little more emotional. It's very difficult with this background, because you lose there, somehow your hands are not there. And just to have a little emotional thing, what happens to a 7-year-old, because it is really painful. I understand that, because some of it I can certainly relate to. What it is that you walk into a room and no one sees you because you have no idea who you are. And I love this phrase of lost in the dream and not knowing how to swim. That is actually a fabulous sentence. That's really great. And I love this whole idea, how you develop yourself into changing yourself, but as therapy and education. And you realize that when you change yourself, then you become visible. And I think this is really an important speech, and I hope you will do this again, because it is important how we go through life, seeing that people ignoring us and nobody sees you, but people did see you. And probably nobody ignored you, except you felt that you were not good enough for anybody to talk to you, play with you, whatever you were, 7-8-year-old. And so really, I really can relate to it. I have gone through something similar to that situation. So it really was a great speech, and it's a good topic. It just needs just a little more depth to it. And when you realize that you changed and all of a sudden, for various means, you became a visible person, that needs to have a little bit more enthusiasm, because it's a big deal when you realize, wow, I got somewhere. And so, but it's really a great topic, and thank you for doing it.
Thank you, Judith. That was excellent. Kathy, how did our 2 evaluators do on time?
Both of our evaluators did great, and they both qualified.
Right, thank you. Well, now we're going to turn it over to the hardest evaluation, because there's so many of them to do. Ray is going, yeah. So I'm going to turn it over to Ray and give him all the time he needs, although you only get 3 minutes, to give us feedback on table topic responders. 4 minutes. Okay, we'll give you 4. Go ahead, Ray.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Listen, we had a fantastic session of table topics tonight. We had 12 table topics. Jesper, amazing job. Fantastic. You led us with these topics. What I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on an aspect from each topic that we can all learn from, a takeaway. Right? So, John, you started us off. Now, you talked about the greetings card in the living room. Live in your living room, you had the kids in tears. You painted a picture, and that was the takeaway, painting a picture. Vincent, we love the opposite answer. Au contraire, reverse the table topic. Why should we talk to Vincent? Because he can't write. So let's help him. Great job. Reverse the topic is the takeaway. Michael, the thoughtful gift, buying flowers, holding him accountable, listening, then talking. What's the takeaway? Listen to respond. We've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. It's a great message. Sandra, you talked about hope and encouragement from Minnesota, the sister love. It was a great mini story from the heart, but we felt it. The heart was the takeaway. Tracy, we're talking about forgave Shantae. So sorry, you hit the stage with impact. Great gestures, great vocal variety, calling out his ladies, great energy. Perhaps a little pause, but 110% for energy. Kathy, good things are, you used it as the lead into the story. And I think that's where our takeaway is. No words, you were emotionally drained, you burst into tears. We could see it, you had gratitude for traveling. Leading into a story was our takeaway. Vicky, yours was the #1 fan. You talked about your mother, dead Rita. Humor, right? Disarming us straight away. That's how you do it. Salty Vicky, be very careful because that might stick. Joel, 38 years a Toastmaster, walked to the stage, showed us how to do it. What an opening. Encouragement to become a public speaker, talking about the joys and the strength. A great table topic. Takeaway, what an opening. Muriel, the difference in your life. You repeated the topic back to the Toastmaster. Now, if nobody noticed, that's a surefire way to pause and just collect your thoughts. What was the takeaway? The openness to grow from limitation. A deeper understanding of ourselves. Judith, you were celebrating achievement, talking about friendship, the emotional connection, how wonderful it was. What was the takeaway there? Working to help another Toastmaster. Working to help another Toastmaster is essential for all of us. That's what we're here. We're here to help each other. Shantae, you came up at the rear. Last but not least, giving back to the community, homeless, the shelters, raising money, men walking in their heels. What's all that about? I had to give it up about 2 years ago. Killed me. It's a topic we can all relate to. And that is the takeaway, the topic we can all relate to. Now, in summary, the art of the topic's master is to get us to speak and open up. And he did exactly that. I'm not sure if that was your first attempt at table topics, but I'm sure everyone will join me in giving you a round of applause, Jesper. You got us all on our feet, us all talking and us all learning. Congratulations. Back to you.
Thank you, Ray. Boy, today my job was made easy by 3 great evaluators. But before I get to feedback on them, how did we do on grammar and Oz and using the word beneficial, which I know I did not do? John, you want to give us a report?
I would love to. First, let me just say there's not enough time. This was just an incredible performance by everyone. As far as beneficial, it felt forgotten and unseen, but eventually people rallied. Shantae said it many times. Tracy said it. Kathy Choice, Muriel, Jesper several times. Vicky in chat. Judith, I apologize if I missed some people. As far as ahs and ums, there was a number of people that were clean. Tracy was clean. Joel was. Sandra, I believe, Ray, a number. Vincent, there's a lot of ums, and then what I call the European variant of it, M. So I noticed that was fine. Shantae, you threw in a so, and Michael, I loved your words and your observations. It was littered with many ums. I really was almost a landmine, but I was able to negotiate it and still hear your words. Okay, as far as phrases that I love, Jack, it was by me, he said as a proud 5-year-old, and I was going to say in diapers, but I guess that's the wrong age. Very good. And obviously we know that you're big. You talked about mom had you wear this necklace because she wanted you to know how good you were. That really stuck with me. And you talked about as a painter staying within the lines. I love that. Shantae, this metaphor of first walking into that door and using it for other doors and other situations of life was powerful. You were the first. You said it with a little more conviction. And as someone who hasn't been a first, that really stuck to me, that's a thing. I felt it this time. Also, when you were the example about how you just didn't get your props, one where you said I was always wrong. I could have sworn 5 + 5 was 10. It showed how blatant it was. And later on, you talked about blatant disregard. Talked about changes in your trajectory. You were loved by some, despised by others. What a great way to depict how you walk in this world at times. And then at the end, I hold the key and I am seen. So above all, you see yourself. Just tell me when to stop. Vincent, I prefer not to call people. I would have thought you're antisocial, and then you realize I'm just being considerate. So thank you for that forgiveness and that latitude to not call people and say I'm a great human being. Michael, you listen to respond, not listen to understand. That was classic. You throw knowledge at people and a flood of circumstantiality. You know the brand of the stove. My God, that was rich. Tracy, it's just the energy, my brother. You know, when you said, I promise that Shantae, can I vote now? Or do I have to wait tonight? I mean, it was just powerful. Kathy Choice, this is a takeaway for all of us. I know she was collecting her thoughts and her words. Did you feel the power? It wasn't manipulated, but maybe we could use it as a tool. She just was processing. She said, what was it? I didn't have the words for it. I mean, I just felt that so deeply. Vicky, what a tribute to your mother. Oh, and I'm sorry, it was touching, but it's damn funny. Dead Rita. That it could be so touching. You dismiss her as Dead Rita. My time is up. I owe other comments to other people. I'll put it in the chat, but it was a wonderful, wonderful display of language and emotion. Back to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you. Let's give a round of applause for all of that wonderful insight to our speeches tonight. I'd like to now take the opportunity to talk to Vincent and then to Judith about your evaluations. And I want to commend you, Vincent, for looking for the trimming that could go in there and also the things that could have been added. And I love that you, well, like me, are of a certain age and appreciated all of Jack's things that brought us back to remembering that time and that feeling. And that, I think, was very effective in bringing that out, because having that connection with your audience is so key. And to all your young people, while you're young, you've got time. But for all of us, the rest of us, we appreciated that. I also agree that there could have been a stronger closing. Like, why come back for Jack Kaminsky's speech number 2? Because this is who I am, and darn it, you're going to love me. And I'll show you more art, but hopefully no more baby photos. So I thought you did an outstanding job of pulling out and extracting the best parts and the parts that could be improved in Jack's speech. And thank you very much, Jack, for sharing your story and your photos with us. Judith, I just want to sit down and cry. That was the best evaluation I've ever heard you give. It was outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. Not only did you highlight the good parts of Shantae's speech, but you also told her, as was the assignment, what could have been left out, where it didn't really need to be put in. And I agree with the story about the co-worker from India. I didn't know where that was going, and it didn't get picked up later. And so I agree that could be, if you were careful on time, a part that you could trim from your speech. And the other part is that, Judith, you brought out where she could have stretched it out, made more emphasis around the emotional parts. And I personally wanted you to take a few more seconds after you said you were the first one to walk into a classroom in Massachusetts. We can picture that picture very clearly. And emphasizing to Shantae the effective use of a pause. You have a strong story, Shantae, and your pauses are your best friend, especially when you have something as important in all of our lives as what you were part of. And then, of course, Judith calling out the best lines that she used. Those were so many to choose from, but you did a great job in until you see yourself, no one sees you. It was, Judith, hands down, super big round of applause to you, an outstanding evaluation. In closing, what can I say about Ray? Ray brings out the best in all of us, and I want to thank you for keeping such good notes on all of our table topic responses and what hit you as very powerful and memorable. And with that, I will turn the meeting over right on time back to Vicki.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Sandra is working on adding well-curated thoughts to evaluations, and you did a fabulous job. Feedback for the general evaluator, of course. In my closing remarks, I want to say two things. One, I find these meetings so beneficial. When I picked the gratitude, I am working through healing, and it just seemed right. And for Jesper to pick it up and to run with it, and everyone's remarks left me feeling better and more whole and more grateful. Also, Jesper, again, thank you for these backgrounds. I'm going to put it on gallery view for a minute. I want to take a screenshot, so everybody smile. All right. And know that we are masters of evaluation. We learn together and we grow together. And with that, I would like to turn our meeting over to Dave, aka Vincent, for closing remarks and guest comments.
Thank you very much for having such an enjoyable quality meeting, and you all, each individual, contributed to this meeting. I would like to call Tracy onto the stage. He obviously is not invisible. I mean, he's got what John just said, he's got such a powerful voice. So I think even when he was a 7-year-old boy, he walked into the classroom, and there he shall tell us a bit where you're from, what you're doing at Toastmasters, and how you liked our meeting. Please. Tracy, are you there? No.
I don't think
He's gone. Okay. Joelle, are you still here? Because I'm in speaker view and I can go.
Yes,
Joelle,
I am.
did you like the meeting? Was it enjoyable?
Absolutely. The meeting was superb. It was enjoyable. It was done differently. It had an objective that to make you a better speaker. It achieved that objective.
Yeah, so that's what we're thriving at. We're trying to give quality feedback. What about you, Michael? I mean, you made your way all the way from Manhattan.
Well, I'm in North Hollywood, so yes, I've definitely traveled. Can you see the red marks on my face? You folks have scratched my Toastmasters itch. I thank you so much, John. Thank you so much for dinging me on the ums. I think you will remember, Jack, that Caroline Kennedy wanted to run for president. There was a New York One interview where she clocked 120 ums in 2 minutes or something like that. And that was it. That was the end of her presidential candidacy. So I appreciate it, John. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Victoria and Vincent, for being the pillars of this place. it feels so professional, so crisp. And I felt like you were also modeling the thing that I love to see. And I'm full of gratitude.
Thank you very much for giving us such positive and heartfelt feedback. Two more people I would like to call onto the stage. One is Shantae. Yes, I'm calling you onto the. I can see you. I can see you there. You will be competing over the weekend for a very important position. Club Glows Director in District 798. No, District number 1. Tell us about it and tell us when we should send our spirits over to you to get your support.
Yeah, well, actually, please send your spirits today because the voting takes place tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Our club VPE and our club president do each get a vote. Everybody else is more than welcome to come to the business meeting tonight, but you will watch via YouTube, not the actual Zoom. So I can put that in the chat for you guys so that you can register to get the link. But yeah, last night was the showcase and I presented my position. And for those who don't know what the Club Growth Director is, it is the person that is in what we call the trio, the top 3 of our district. And I would be responsible for bringing in new clubs, but also assisting clubs that are struggling or challenged and helping them to get in great standings and helping them thrive through Toastmasters, through mentorship and coaches and all of those fun things. So yes, vote for me.
Well, I wish you all the very best and of luck. I'm sure you will succeed. It's 7:30 in Europe here, therefore I'm not going to wait for another 12 hours, but I wish you all the best. And also I would like to call onto this virtual stage. You know what I'm talking about? Oh, Ray, yes, a man who lives in my time zone. He is going to compete tomorrow on the African continent.
Yes, indeed, Senor Vincent. I shall be in the Iberian Peninsula, battling against Morocco, Spain, Portugal, Andorra, and Gibraltar.
Wow.
So
Why
tomorrow
are you
morning-
competing?
Sorry?
I said, why are you competing?
Because I want to win.
Good, yes,
I'm in it to win it.
To win.
That's
And
what-
we want both Sante and Ray to win and show off with their medals in a couple of weeks' time. And I think this brings our meeting to an end. If we stop the recording,